So today, Mike Hastings is with me. Mike, thanks so much for making time in this little hotel lobby to chat about unsuccess.
Which I feel is the story of my life.
Well, exactly, and that's why we want to talk about it, because my first comment to that comment would be, what are you talking about? I will have laid out all your credentials in the intro, and people will be wowed by how seemingly successful you are. So chat to us a little bit, Mike, about your professional career and your relationship with success as a follower of Jesus.
Well, I love to say, in all honesty, that I've never had a professional career. Because if you say a career is something where you've gone to a college, gone to university, obtained a degree, got a qualification, made a decision to follow a particular professional line, to do a certain area of work, and then progressed and progressed and progressed and progressed, that's your thematic career. I've never had that. So I did go to college. I did do a degree in theology. I am not very academic, so I ended up with a lower second class degree, not a higher second or a first class, so a lower second class degree.
So you got a 2-2?
I got a 2-2.
A Desmond.
A Desmond 2-2, and that means that therefore a person of distinction and quality and passion. And I think it's the passion which I then took into teaching, and it was that passion that then took me to working for the Prime Minister in Downing Street as a non-political supporter of a conservative government's mission to renew the inner city communities that had rioted 1981, 1985. My job was to be the conduit connector between black communities and civil servants and government machinery that wanted to support with finances. And then I went from that into television, and from television I then went into lobbying, and from lobbying I then went into business with KPMG, and then I retired, and then I now lead universities. So if you say career, there's no career plan or path. There's just if I get asked to do something and it's something I feel I can contribute to meaningfully, I'll try and I'll do it.
So then, okay, no career per se, but would you say you had a clear sense of purpose or a clear sense of what your unique contribution to the world
Yes, I did.
is?
So at the age of 16, when at secondary school in the north of England, a place called Scarisbrick Hall, which I loved greatly, and my brother and I were both students there. And at the time, more or less, if my memory is right, we were the only two non-white students at this 800-pupil school.
Right.
And I remember very clearly being asked by my very dear friend at the time, what is it you want to do with your life? And it's one of those conversations most 16-year-olds don't have, but we had. And I know it just came off the end of my tongue. In an instant, I said, I want to speak up for the poor,
Right.
and I want to bend the power of the prosperous to the potential of the poor.
Wow.
And I remember my friend saying to me, what does that mean? I said, well, I know the first bit means I need to kind of articulate the case of those who are on the margins of life and those who don't have resources and those who need equity and opportunity. But what does the second bit mean? I don't know what that bit means, but I think I'll discover what it means in wherever God takes me to in the pattern of the future. And so it really best came into effect when I worked at KPMG, and I got the opportunity through a multi-billion global business organization to orchestrate the weight of the business community, not just in KPMG, but associated other businesses, towards development communities, most notably one on a little island north of Zanzibar, which is off the coast of Tanzania, a little island called Pemba Island. And in the top right-hand corner, there is a community of people called, it was a little village called Mishuena Village, 10,000 people living in what Professor Jeffrey Sachs, the architect of the Sustainable Development Goals, called the worst conditions of poverty and destitution he'd seen anywhere in the world.
Wow.
And he couldn't get a single business or government agency or even the government of Tanzania to treat these 10,000 people with dignity and respect and opportunity and potential and to raise their prospects. And I went to see it at its worst and came away so shocked but so determined that I couldn't be in this hugely profitable, rich, powerful, well-connected organization and not seek to pull its resources financially and design-wise and energy-wise and agriculture-wise and building-wise and business development, pull all its resources towards these people. And I won the argument and we did it.
And Pemba Island now presumably looks quite different.
Well, Mishuena Village does.
Mishuena Village.
We focused on one village,
right.
10,000 people. Our job was to create for those people sanitation, electrification, maternal care, health care, business development, banking, finance, technology, education.
Okay, so pretty
pretty
comprehensive.
Yes.
So that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Going choosing. I mean, I say this a lot, but someone once said to me, "Choose people," and when you choose people, the issues will choose themselves.
That's right.
So you chose these people in this village, and the issues chose themselves.
Yes, exactly.
As opposed to, "Hey, I'm Mike Hastings. Let me build you a well," or whatever seems to happen.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. And Mike, from your point of view. I mean, there's a chapter in my book around being a faithful presence in the culture wars. And that every follower of Jesus, George Bernard Shaw famously said, never wrestle a pig, you'll get dirty, and besides, the pig enjoys it.
Yes.
And
that's a good one. I love that.
Right. But it seems to me that a lot of time is spent by Christians and non-Christians alike wrestling pigs online or in the public sphere, and that actually that doesn't constitute faithful witness.
No.
As someone who has, isn't in, quote, church ministry officially, and is in the real world, as it were, not the Christian bubble, what does faithful Christian witness in the culture wars look like for you?
Well, probably the best way to flag it would be to say, every day of my week, and certainly dominantly at the weekends, I take phone calls from men in prison. I have correspondence from men in prison. I work to help people get development in their prosecution process. I support them towards release. We have a whole network of guys who are working together to support whether it's playing football or basketball inside prisons, or whether it's corresponding and meeting with and dialoguing. When the men come out of prison, they join our group of brothers, and that gives them an opportunity, a connection to be part of. Within that circle of relationships, what we're aiming to do is very simple. We're aiming to do exactly what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 25, when I was in prison, you visited me. So we're not going to preach to anyone, we're not going to sing to anyone, we're not going to read to anyone. We're visiting with people.
Right.
And then when we visit with them, they inevitably get on to that, but how do I improve my life? And then you start working on things like habits and behaviors and responses, teaching men the difference between reaction and response.
Right.
Most men are in prison because they reacted the wrong way. They've done something violent. They've done something evil. They've grabbed something in an instant moment. If they could learn to respond because they think it through, take time.
Yeah.
When Jesus said, when you're slapped on the left side of the face, turn the right, that's responding. If when you're slapped on the left side, you punch back on the right, that's reacting.
Right.
And it's the punching back that gets people into violent disruption that throws them into prison. So what we're trying to walk with these men in the journey of opportunity in life is that they can have freedom for themselves. Many of them will come to faith or live in faith and choose faith, and they will get to know Jesus, or they're followers of Islam, or wherever they are in their faith journey. We walk with them. It doesn't matter to us what their faith position is.
So it's not believe what we believe and then we will give you lots of stuff or support you more.
No.
Right.
It is, you're a person of intrinsic value. I've had the opportunity to sit with you, talk with you, learn about you. You've learned about me. We're very open. We're very transparent. We co-support and get to know each other, respond with each other. When you come out, you're welcome to join with us if you want to. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. We'll maintain relationship. One of the things I actively do is, as many of the men leave prison, I bring them to the Palace of Westminster to have lunch with them so that they are quickly seen that I respect them, that they're treated with honor, that they can really believe that there is a world that wants them, as compared to a world that might despise them because of what they've done. And we have people who've done 1 year in prison, 7 years in prison, 22 years in prison. I mean, the whole shebang. And we're working with guys. One guy we're working with now he's on a 38-year sentence. I mean, it doesn't matter how long the sentence is. It doesn't matter what the accusations and what the crimes were. What matters is this person is in a position of renewal now.
Right. Right.
Not what they were 25 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 3 years ago, but now they're in a position of inner renewal, academic renewal, intellectual renewal, spiritual renewal, developmental renewal, and therefore how can we support them to achieve a life that is full of good habits and positive outcomes?
It's amazing. I mean, it's totally unrelated in a sense, but as you're speaking, it does kind of remind me of the story of the woman who encounters Jesus, who's been bleeding for 12 years. And, you know, she touches the hem of his garment, and we make a big deal about that. And, you know, whole ministries are called after that, you know, sentence type thing. And that is amazing, and power leaves him, and she is healed from then on. But what I find as or even more amazing is Jesus saying, well, who touched me? And you think, well, don't humiliate her. You know, let her quietly get on with being healed and restored. But it's a very deliberate ploy, isn't it, by Jesus to reinstate her back publicly into a society that had ostracized and isolated her.
Yes.
And here's Jesus, the rabbi, endorsing her, loving her. And it said she got to tell her whole story. And if you had been a bleeding woman, ceremonially unclean, and all the rest of it in those days, that is a whole lot of story. And meanwhile, Jairus, the synagogue ruler or whatever, you know, the man of power, is waiting. Jesus is saying to the powerful, wait, because we have to hear this woman's truth.
Yes, yes.
And what you're saying about taking these guys to the House of Lords and all of that, it just reminded me, I suppose, of, we're not just going to help you and support you in prison, but we're actually going to be part of, God willing, you recognizing your inherent worth and not just being on the margins of society, but just not incarcerated anymore.
Yes. And what's beginning to happen here in the UK, and I know it's happening in the US a lot too, more and more employers are beginning to open their eyes and say, you know something, we need to be much more open-handed and open-receiving about people who have spent time in prison and come out. Because after all, if somebody has spent, say, 15 years or 20 years or even 5 years, the likelihood is the crime that was committed is 10 years back,
right,
or 20 years back.
Right.
The person is not the same. And they have developed capacities and skills, and if they are intentional on staying on the right side of the line, the best side of the line, they're very useful because they're hungry to work, they're eager to be effective, they need income and resources, and they're reliable. And they've developed good habits. I mean, that's one of the things I noticed about men who come out of prison. They're actually quite disciplined.
Right,
because they've been in disciplined environments.
Yeah.
And it means that if you say to them, be here at 10 o'clock, they are there at quarter to 10. I mean, they really have a sense of the vivid future that is in their hands and the possibilities. Many employers are now taking on ex-offenders. Professional service firms are doing it, retailers are doing it, small development organizations are doing it, and there's networks we're involved in which are going to expand that in terms of entrepreneurship opportunities and business startups. So I think that means there's a mood now which is willing to say people who were once perceived to be a threat lost the sting of that threat during the period, the first few years or the period of their incarceration. Then they go through a period of renewal and development, and it equips them to be citizens who are as competent as anybody else. But here's the other thing, and I say this now every time I get the opportunity to do a speech, I make this particular point.
Yeah.
Because we easily get hung up about the guys who are in prison, who've gone through the courts, who've been arrested, who've done crime and so on, and they're being punished. When you then look at, this is UK police records now.
Right.
So the police, with all of their combined efforts and resources, collectively arrest and bring to charge less than 10%, in fact the figure's about 6%, of all recorded crimes committed.
Golly.
Now, some of those are the big crimes, which are the violent and dangerous ones. But 6%, even let's put it at just 10% for round-up sake, that means that you and I are walking around the streets surrounded by people who've not been arrested. They're on the bus, they're on the tube, they're on the underground, they're in the shops, they're in the school, they're around, they're in everywhere you go, people who've committed crimes who've never been caught. And yet we are spending time vilifying and denigrating the people who have been caught and paid a price for it.
Yeah, wow.
What about the 90% who've never paid any price for it?
And so we're kind of scared of an ex-offender, an ex-inmate, or whatever we call it, but actually they have been on a process that those who haven't ever been incarcerated haven't been. So
exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Good.
And we need to open our eyes to that and to see that actually society as a whole is safest when we all accept each other.
Interesting. Well, let me go from that kind of mic drop moment to, please don't drop the mic, although it's got a bite mark in it. I see Simi's bitten the, I think one of my children bit it. I assume that wasn't you. But let's go to that mic drop statement from there to 2024 is an election year all over the world, right? And there could be wholesale change in some seriously significant elections. All elections are significant, but you know what I mean. What would you say to the church, to followers of Jesus who get caught up in the polarization of demonizing this person or that ideology or whatever, from someone in politics with decades of experience, having worked for government? What would you say to people who are really like, I really want to honor Jesus with my life, but I do not know what to make of all of this political stuff? What would you say to people?
I think I'd say three things off the top of my head. Firstly, I'd say make sure that you are very intelligently aware of what the options mean. So don't just make assumptions. It's easy to say, well, what is comfortable is to be on the sort of place where we all feel good about one another. We're sort of center left. We feel good about each other. We're sort of kind people.
Right.
We all mean all the right things. That's not necessarily the right answer in some circumstances. So be highly intelligent about what the options really mean. Spend the time, read manifestos, think carefully about the people who are in charge of political systems, wherever that happens to be. Really weigh up the balance of their lives, their behavior, their conduct, and their character. Think carefully about all of the options. Weigh them up. Secondly, instead of spending time agonizing with fury about who's right and who's wrong, which means that we divide easily and we go off into our own clusters, spend time building relationships with people on the other side. However you see the other side.
Hang about. Right.
Find people who don't agree. Now, I am an arch anti-Brexiteer. The whole process in the United Kingdom, I was convinced, and I've been proved right, was a disaster, a bad decision.
Right.
But, as people would say, some of my best friends are Brexiteers, and they are.
Right.
So it's no point saying, look, because you're a Brexiteer and because you voted that way or because you voted that way, I cannot possibly relate to you. I like to have, and I believe it's important to have, robust, intelligent dialogue. Let's look at things through the lens of facts and outcomes as compared to perceptions and irritations. So discover people and take time to understand people who are opposite. Believers in Jesus spend time sitting and eating meals with non-believers in Jesus. Get to know people for who they are.
Yeah.
Whether their position is a faith position or an ideological position or just a political position. Get to know them for who they are so that whatever the outcome of this is, we don't divide.
Yeah. Yeah.
We combine, because what matters most are the things we say we care about constructing a stable society and a just society and an equitable society. Whoever is in charge, we still need to do those things. And most of those things will happen at local level rather than at the big policy level. It's helped by the big policy level, but at local level we can feed people, we can provide support for healthcare, we can back people doing schooling in the evenings and at weekends, we can get alongside people who need housing, we can do the stuff that gives people freedom and opportunity, whatever the big picture stays.
Much whoever's in government, unless they're a complete dictator.
Exactly. It'd be wonderful if whoever's in government does those things too.
Yeah.
But if they don't do them, we should do them.
Right.
Because that is our spiritual injunction. So my first point is be highly intelligent, highly engaged, really read, discover. The second one is build relationships with people across the board and those especially that you disagree with or think you might disagree with.
Right.
Make sure that you discover who they are. But the third thing is that politics, the whole art of politics, should be about taking longitudinal decisions which weigh up what is best in the long future for the building of a strong society. I don't know in the West, certainly here in the UK, and I don't know any politicians who come into office so they can destroy things. They don't.
Yeah, good point.
They don't step in to do what is bad.
Right.
They may end up doing what is bad.
Right.
But they didn't begin like that. So, so why don't we make the assumption that most people in political life, whether at local level or national level or international, are seeking to do what is collectively good for the people of the countries that they serve.
Mm.
Now, I'm not talking about other places which are dictatorships and
Right.
corrupt and so on, but I'm talking about reasonable, we're no perfect democracy, but reasonable democracies. If they're seeking to do what is best, we need to get alongside supportively rather than critically. You know, one of the most, being a member of parliament, but in the upper house, one of the things that is so irritating is when there is, quotes, a moral issue hanging about
Right.
in Westminster, like one of the life issues. Oh, all the Christians come out of the woodwork.
Give an example.
Well, if you take we're having a debate about euthanasia right now. The House
Right.
of Commons had a big debate on euthanasia last week. The euthanasia question will recirculate around Parliament in the next few months. It will come to a point where there is a clear legislative decision. The weight of it at the moment is heading towards allowing assisted suicide.
Right.
Whereas you track back 10 years back, adamantly no.
Yeah.
But the movement is towards that. Now, the greening community come out in force. They will bombard us. The Christian writers bombard us. But they don't bombard us about housing.
Right.
They don't bombard us about poverty in the developing world or poverty in the north of England or poverty in London. They don't bombard us about education in the less developed world where girls are especially less supported. They don't bombard us about prisons, but they bombard us about euthanasia and abortion and identity issues.
So gender and sex and that sort of thing.
Basically, it's a one-horse race.
Right.
And
that's what Christians are known for in Parliament.
Yes. Well, Christians get reaction to that in Parliament.
Right.
And when there is anything which is complicated, socially complicated, as it were, the greening community comes out in force and they seek to push us over the edge to their perspective. And we get all these personalized letters which are all the same. So we know how it's being done, and most of them honestly need to go in the bin because what they're not, if the same people were writing to us about social housing and about prison issues and about sentence transformation and about general health, or if the same people were writing to us about development, education, investment for people in the less developed world, or about taking the parts of the UK which are poorer and more fragile that need higher investment in primary schooling, if they were writing about that, I'd be inclined to give equal weight to all the issues.
So, that's interesting. So what is the theology that gets you there? What is the theology that is the foundation for such a narrow stream of causes being fought by Christians in the public sphere?
I think the theology has been based entirely on that the Lord is the giver of life, so life issues.
Yeah. So who are we to take that away?
Exactly,
Right.
And that's abortion, euthanasia, etc., and trans issues. So
Right.
Whatever sits in the life bucket,
Right.
personal morality, life bucket, they feel intensely strongly about, and sometimes for very good reason.
Yeah.
But all the other issues, which are Jesus issues, when I was in prison, you visited me. When I was hungry, you brought me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink.
Yeah.
When I had nowhere to go, you came. And you provided life for me, sustainability, sustenance, freedom for me. You defended me. When I was there, weak and vulnerable and needy, you were right there for me.
Right.
They're Jesus issues too.
And that doesn't make you a socialist. It makes you a faithful follower of
Exactly.
Jesus.
It's not a political position.
Right.
So we want to be able to support, we should all be supporting people, not because of their political position, but because of their convictions, the clarity of their lives, and their determination, whether they are followers of a faith community or not.
Agreed.
Get behind
Agreed.
the people who are great about what is good.
Great about what is good. And that actually might be quite a neat place to wind down, because I was going to say, so give me your definition of what success means in the kingdom. And maybe that's what it is, being great about what is good.
Focusing on the small things that matter to people who don't have a voice or a platform who don't have a position, who don't feel anybody listens, who feel that they're isolated and irritated and on their own, taking time with them and helping them to stand up and giving them dignity because they matter. That is to have succeeded.
Mike, thank you very much for your time, this quick-fire hotel lobby interview.
Yes.
Your life is an inspiration, not just to me, but to
yours.
many.
Yes.
Well, back at you. And thank you very much indeed.
A joy. Thank you. Thanks, Pete.